Here's a number that stops most people cold. If you want to live off dividends, $50,000 a year forever, without ever touching your principal, and you're holding the kind of stocks most beginners actually buy, you'd need over $3 million invested. $3 million. But stick with me, because there's a smarter version of this exact plan where the number is less than half that. And by the end of this video, you're going to be able to calculate your own number on the back of a napkin. Living off dividends is one of the most appealing ideas in all of investing. You buy shares of companies. Those companies pay you a slice of their profits every few months. And eventually those payments cover your bills. You're not selling anything. You're not clocking in. The money just shows up. It's the closest thing to a paycheck that doesn't require a job. But how much do I actually need is where almost everybody either gets the wrong answer or gives up. Some people think it's a few $100,000. Some people think it's impossible without 10 million. The truth is, there's one simple formula that gives you a precise number, and once you understand it, you'll never be confused about this again. So here's exactly what we're covering. First, the one piece of math that controls everything: your target income divided by one number. Second, we'll follow a real example, a guy named Marcus who wants to retire on his dividends, and we'll watch his number change as we make the plan more realistic. Taxes, inflation, all of it. And third, the 4 mistakes that quietly wreck most dividend income plans, and the simple way to sidestep each one. Let's get into it. Let's start with what a dividend actually is, because the whole thing hinges on this. When a company makes a profit, it can do 2 things with the cash. It can reinvest it back into the business, or it can hand some of it directly to shareholders. That direct cash payment to shareholders is a dividend. If you own the shares, you get paid, usually 4 times a year, every quarter. Now, the number that matters most isn't the dollar amount of the dividend. It's the yield. Dividend yield is just the annual dividend divided by the price you pay, written as a percentage. So if a stock costs $100 and pays you $3 a year, that's a 3% yield. Simple as that. Yield is what lets you compare a cheap stock and an expensive stock on equal footing. It tells you how hard each dollar you invest is actually working. And here's the formula. The whole video, really. Take the annual income you want and divide it by your portfolio's yield. That's the amount you need invested. Income divided by yield equals the portfolio. Let's make that real. Say you want $30,000 a year. If your investments yield 3%, you do 30,000 divided by 0.03, and you get $1 million at a 6% yield. That same 30,000 only takes 500,000, and at 1.5%, which, heads up, is roughly what a broad basket of large, well-known companies pays right now. That same 30,000 a year would require $2 million invested. Did you catch what just happened? The income we wanted never changed. It was 30,000 the whole time. The only thing that moved was the yield, and it swung the answer from $500,000 to $2 million. Yield is the lever. It is the single most important dial in this entire game, and it's exactly the dial most beginners ignore. There's a shortcut worth memorizing too. Financial planners have a rule of thumb sometimes called the rule of 300, and multiply your monthly expenses by 300 and you get a ballpark portfolio target. That's just a 4% yield in disguise. Spend $4,000 a month. Times 300 is 1.2 million. It's the same formula packaged for your monthly budget instead of your yearly one. So before we go further, sit with the big idea. You are not chasing a giant pile of money for its own sake. You're chasing an income stream, and the size of the pile you need is decided almost entirely by the yield you can earn safely. Keep that word safely in your back pocket, because it's about to matter a lot. Let's put a real person through this. Marcus is 38. He wants to eventually cover his life entirely with dividends, and after looking at his spending, he lands on a target, $50,000 a year. That's his magic income number. Now let's find his portfolio number and watch how it changes as we get honest about the real world. Round 1, the naive version. Marcus does what a lot of beginners do and just buys a broad fund of big-name companies yielding around 1.5%. 50,000 divided by 0.015 equals, brace yourself, $3.3 million. That's the $3 million number from the very start of this video. It's technically correct, and it's why so many people conclude living off dividends is hopeless. Round 2, he gets smarter about yield. Marcus shifts toward a portfolio built around solid, established dividend-paying companies yielding about 3%. Now the math is 50,000 divided by 0.03, which is 1.67 million. He just cut his target in half, same income, simply by being intentional about yield. Push that to a carefully chosen 4%, and his number drops to 1.25 million. Feeling good. Now let's get honest, because two things are about to bite Marcus, and they bite everyone. The first is taxes. Dividends usually aren't tax-free, depending on the account and the type of dividend. A chunk gets taken before it ever hits his checking account. Say Marcus loses roughly 15% to taxes. Then his 50,000 of spendable income actually requires about 59,000 in gross dividends. At a 4% yield, that nudges his target from 1.25 million up to about 1.47 million. Taxes don't break the plan, but they're a real wedge, and ignoring them means coming up short every single year. The second is inflation, and this one's sneaky. Marcus is 38. He might be drawing this income for 40 years. $50,000 today does not buy $50,000 worth of life in 20 years. At just 3% inflation, the same lifestyle that costs $50,000 today costs about $90,000 in 20 years. If his dividend income stays flat, his standard of living quietly gets cut nearly in half without him doing anything wrong. So how does Marcus beat that? This is the beautiful part. He doesn't just want companies that pay dividends. He wants companies that raise their dividends. Look at this. A $500,000 portfolio yielding 3% pays $15,000 in year one. But if those companies grow their payouts by 6% a year, that same portfolio, without adding a single new dollar, is paying about $27,000 a year after 10 years and roughly $48,000 after 20. The yield on what he originally invested climbs and climbs. That's the engine that outruns inflation, not a high yield today, but a growing one over time. So Marcus's real plan isn't find the biggest yield. It's own quality companies at a sensible yield that keep handing out bigger checks every year. His honest number lands somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million. And crucially, it's a number that grows its own income instead of slowly bleeding out to inflation. All right, you've got the formula and you've seen it in action. Now let's protect you from the 4 mistakes that quietly destroy dividend income plans. Because avoiding these matters more than picking the perfect stock. Mistake number 1, chasing yield off a cliff. This is the big one. A beginner sees a stock advertising a 9% yield and thinks, great, I need way less money. But an unusually high yield is usually a warning light, not a gift. Here's why. Yield is the dividend divided by the price. If a company is in trouble and its stock price collapses, the yield mathematically shoots up right before they cut the dividend. Watch how this plays out. You put 100,000 into a 9%, expecting 9,000 a year. Then the company struggles, cuts its dividend in half, and the price drops 40%. Now you're collecting 4,500 instead of 9, and your 100,000 is worth 60,000. You went hunting for income and lost 40,000 in capital. Anything above roughly 4% deserves a hard, skeptical look before you touch it. Mistake number 2, forgetting taxes twice. We covered taxes with Marcus, but people make this error in 2 directions. They forget taxes when calculating how much income they need, so they come up short. and they hold dividend payers in the wrong type of account, handing more to the tax man than necessary. The fix is simple: build your target around after-tax income, and pay attention to which account your dividend payers live in. Mistake number 3, ignoring inflation and dividend growth. A portfolio that pays a flat income looks great on day 1 and feels like poverty 20 years later. We saw it. 50,000 today needs to become 90,000 in 20 years just to stand still. If every company you own pays a fat dividend, but never raises it, you've built a machine that slowly shrinks. Favor companies with a long, boring history of nudging their dividend up year after year. Boring is the goal here. Mistake number 4, betting everything on 1 or 2 big payers. When you're hungry for yield, it's tempting to load up on the 2 or 3 highest payers you can find and call it a portfolio. But dividends are a promise, not a guarantee. A company can cut or cancel its payout anytime, usually at the worst possible moment. If half your income comes from one company, and that company slashes its dividend, half your retirement income vanishes overnight. Spread your income across many companies and several different industries. You want lots of small streams feeding the river, not one big pipe that can be shut off. And here's the meta lesson tying all 4 together: a dividend is income the company chooses to pay you. It is not a bill they're legally required to cover. Respect that, build in a margin of safety, and aim for a yield you can actually defend. And you've already avoided the traps that catch almost everyone else. Quick pause. If this is finally making the math click for you, do me one favor and hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about turning intimidating money concepts into plain, do-it-yourself numbers, and dividend investing is a whole series. We've got videos breaking down exactly how to build a growing dividend portfolio from scratch, how the different account types change your tax bill, and how dividend investing stacks up against just selling shares for income. Subscribe so you don't have to go hunting for the next piece. It'll come to you. Okay, let's wrap this up with the one thing I want you to remember. So how much do you need to live off dividends? Here's the one takeaway to carry out of this video. It's your target income divided by your yield. And yield is the lever that decides everything. A realistic, sustainable yield in the 3 to 4% range means most people are looking at roughly 25 to 33 times their annual spending. So $50,000 a year lands you somewhere in the ballpark of $1.5 to $2 million, built to grow with inflation, not get eaten by it. That's the honest number. Not a fantasy, not hopeless. Just math you can now run yourself. If you want to actually build toward that number, watch our video on how compounding turns small monthly investments into serious income over time. It is the natural next step from here. One quick note: everything in this video is educational, not personalized financial advice. Your situation is your own, so do your own research before investing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. And that's a wrap on today's topic. If you found this helpful, be sure to hit like and subscribe so you never miss a lesson. Have a question about what we covered today? Drop it in the comments below. I'll be answering the best ones. If you want to dive even deeper, click on this next video right here, where we explore next topic. Thanks for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.